Hey, y'all. It is your girl, NicoleHeals, and I am back with another episode on the, I guess, third part of the metaphysics of self respect, part two of the last episode. And if you're new here, I was just going to jump in, child, without without introducing myself, just walking up into y'all house without saying hi. Hello, my name is Nicole Heals, and that person, which is me, is a collective guide here to help people awaken to themselves. And so, what we do here in this healing corner is that we hold space for us as individuals to receive information in our own corner, in our own nook, whether that be a physical one or the one that you have within yourself. And then, there is a community here that listens. I just want to let y'all know that because I know healing it within itself can seem pretty isolating and it can make you self isolate, especially if you feel like you don't have any support. And so, I just want to let y'all know we're all in our respective healing corners, healing cornerly. We're all here for a reason, for a purpose that may be the same or different, as the fact that we are individuals. And so I don't want y'all to feel like you're alone, because healing can feel very lonely. And I want y'all to know that y'all do have a community here, even if it's just me, and I'm speaking these things, putting language to feeling, and then, you heal in that way because, the whole reason why my name is Nicole Heals is that, I heal as I heal. I lift as I climb, I include as I dig deeper into myself, into these topics. And so I'm honored to be here to help, listeners awaken to themselves with a focus on spirituality and the inner spirit, as well as, inner child healing, because I feel like so much of what we go through stems from childhood. And when we are able to take ownership of our energy, ownership of our past, and bring it into the present moment, we're really able to awaken to the person that we are right now. That's in our corner listening, and gaining this knowledge. Because the thing about it is that you need all of your energy to live authentically and to live in your truth and your own spirit, And so we may need to go back in time and put language to feeling. And in that way, we are healing all parts of ourselves that we may be convinced that we're separate from and are separate from us, which is not, the real truth. We need to collect these fragmented versions of ourselves and bring them into the light. And so if you're here, then that means you're ready. Welcome to my healing corner. The space that I've carved out to help people carve out their own. Feel free to grab whatever you need. Maybe it's some tea, maybe it's some water, maybe sometimes it may be a shot. Listen, I do not judge. Maybe some wine. Feel free to collect your crystals, your Bible, any other sacred text that you have. Match it with some funny fuzzy socks, some sweats, a face mask. Get comfortable and come and get this healing. Let's get ready to dive. One thing I love about this episode, and just one thing I love in general about what I do, I love diving deep. I have a lot of planets in my 12th house for my astrology people and my moon there. I have a stellium there 12th house is the subconscious. I love diving deep into the water and just seeing. I am Ariel, seeing what treasures I can pick up and then bring to my own little space and just learn about it. That's so fun to me. And so, for all my people that also find that entertaining, I'm so glad that you're here, that you've been able to find me. Like I said, I know sometimes if you're into this type of stuff, it can feel really isolating. So I'm happy for my podcast, this episode, to be used as a tool, to feel like something familiar. So, that being said, if you would like to donate to the podcast and to me in general as a creator and guide, you can send donations to my Cash App, which is at NICCC1. And if you would like to make reoccurring donations, there is the listener support option on podcasters.spotify.com, I believe, /NicoleHeals. But if you can't find that, there's definitely a link in the bio of whatever medium you're listening to this on, where you can get a direct link to the podcast, and then it'll have that option. Do not worry, honey. But also, if you would also like to make reoccurring donations, there is the option of subscribing to my Patreon, where you also have additional treats. Right now, the option is to subscribe for $4.44 or more a month, and you get some additional writings of things that just gauge my mind, things that I think about, things that I go deeper on, and yeah, I already have some subscribers on there. There is a free option as well as a paid option. So if you just want to keep up with me, yeah, feel free to subscribe to there, as well as follow me on social media. That also allows like a different type of donation, which is engagement, and creators need that to be visible, and, word of mouth, and that option to share, onto your story, even onto your feed, on TikTok, reposting it, and even reposting it on Twitter. All of that, is definitely very appreciated. And, it's also a form of currency that I'm happy to receive from y'all. So if you would like to go that route, well, first, my Patreon is patreon.com/NicoleHeals. It's probably also linked somewhere. But also, if you would like to go that route of social media, everything, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok is at NicoleHeals, which I'm so happy about, because in earlier episodes, you will hear me denouncing someone who had, like, I had to be Nicole.Heals, I think, and it was so annoying. And Nicole Heals was someone who didn't post since 2016, and finally that account got purged. Yes, I am happy about that. So now, honestly, shout out to her. I'm so sorry I had to do it to you, girl, but I'm so happy that your account got purged. Thank you for moving out the way, child. I hope you're doing well, though, under a different username, period. Anyway, let me stop being silly. Another way to like non-monetarily donate is to rate the podcast or comment, give it a star, give it a like, whatever medium that you're listening to this on, helps you to do. That also, does a lot. Also, sharing it through your texts and group chats. Maybe you meet a new spiritual friend and y'all are both on your healing journey, and she's like, oh, but I need some resource. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I have this great podcast. Period. Put her up on game. Put them up on game and allow them to come and get this healing too, child. Thank you so very much. All of this is greatly appreciated. And let's get back into the episode. Okay, so last episode, we were talking about how compassion and, like the softer energies, they are there to help usher in the more stronger energies that we may need to cultivate and embody, to live richer, deeper lives with more substance, and also that are more us, to be able to carve out space for ourselves, to be able to live these richer and deeper lives. Um, we need the softer energies to usher in the stronger energies, to embody. And we touched on compassion, and we were just like, what is compassion? When you break away the surface, when you break past the surface, what's within? How can we dive deeper into compassion? And so, in diving deeper and understanding the energy of it so that we could cultivate it more easily within ourselves and recognize it as well more easily within ourselves, we started with humility. And we were just talking about how humility is like a containment, you know, within compassion, to be humble. Mm. And honestly, homework, not even homework, real in time work. Let's just tune into it right now. What is compassion? What do you see? Write it down. And then when you're comfortable with that, what is humility? And how does it settle into compassion? How is it within compassion? And the truth is, compassion is an opening and humility is a deeper opening. It's a containment of self, you know? It allows us to stay within ourselves and wield our power in a self contained way. It allows us to stay vulnerable, but also to stay in the moment, and hear, see, feel what is really happening right now in this moment, to keep you in love, keep you connected, keep you in self love, allowing the power of humility, the ability to be calm, to say the least, in stressful situations, when you feel like you're in the hot seat and when you're in conflict. And it's within compassion for a reason, and for the specific reason of coming back into love. That's what humility helps you do. It helps you come back into love, come back into what really matters. And I don't mean that in a bypassy way of like, oh, like, I'm going to come into humility and then I'm just going to say, I just love you. Let's just drop this problem right now. Let's just fuse again. Let's just stop fighting. No. If something is wrong with you and another person and y'all need to hash it out. But it allows you to do it, to hash things out in love, self contained, unwilling, or even able. Because when you're humble, it's like this is not something that you're able to do, but also unwilling to wield your power onto other people's, wield your knowledge and your knowing and your way on other people. And it provides an opening for both of y'all with the opportunity to listen, the opportunity to stand down and stop trying to be right. Because the aspect of being right or wrong within love is just, it's not compatible, you know? And so it allows you to cast out right or wrong and the rest of your ego. And this is not to say that to be in love, you cannot be yourself, that you cannot still have your point, and you cannot still bring yourself to the table and say, hey, this is what's happening right now. It allows you to come to into the middle 50% and then invites the other person 50%. But in order to do that, a lot of us need humility. We need to stand down in our own energy and in our own power. We need to remind ourselves of what this is all really about. We need to come to a place of peace rather than reactivity, rather than just reacting to our own fear, reacting to our own past, and reacting to the things that made us scared of power and respect and these quote unquote harder energies in the first place. Self containment, containment of self, containment of your own energy, able to stay in the moment, stay current, stay aware of what's currently going on, and stand down to your own fear from reliving your own fear of when conflict was scary and when conflict meant that you lose yourself. When conflict meant right or wrong. When conflict meant all love and lovingness goes out of the window. And now it is a battleground. And so when you're humble and you're able to move forward in being humble, it gives the other person an opportunity, not necessarily to match that, but to recognize, hey, I'm not here to take advantage of you, number one. I'm also not here to really fight. I'm here to hear you and gain and garner solutions. And as I said that, I felt a little emotional because I stepped more into my heart. I felt vulnerable because that's also something humility brings. It's an opening for a reason. Compassion is the first initial opening. And then humility, like I want y'all throughout this episode to look at this like a map, like a mapping of compassion, within our bodies, a mapping of the energy within our bodies, but like understand it within your own body, but also just understand it in peering into the energy of compassion itself. It's an opening of your own love, your own empathy, your own self-love. And then the humility is another opening, another layer, a deeper opening to get you to open to, I feel like, yourself first, so that you are open and can hear, so that you can confront yourself and be in yourself and not be at odds with yourself and thus at odds with other people. Because you need to be right because you don't trust yourself to be wrong. It's that hand to your chest that says, okay, stand down, but also you're safe. But also, we don't need to turn up right now. But also, they are not our enemy. And also, I'm not your enemy right now in this moment. It brings a certain coherence where you are able to be in union and thus in harmony, which is literally the next. The next thing that is within self respect. It doesn't bring you out of your power, but it allows you to use your own power for containment. And when you peer into humility and look into the energy of it, I want you to write down or just say out loud what you see, what you hear, what you feel. What color is it? For me, it's white. It's so divine. It's it's kneeling at the feet of God, willing and open to learn. And honestly, if you're in a conflict that's so hard where you just cannot contain your emotions for whatever reason, not putting a right or wrong or that, for whatever reason, we're all human. Literally, you want to practice humility? Go and be humble before God and ask God, I need help with this. Go in front of your ancestors, go in front of your peoples. Don't go to that friend that you know will just always affirm you and agree with you. Try and switch it up and go to someone that tells you the truth lovingly. And even if you don't agree with all of what they have to say, still be open to listen. A big part of humility is keeping yourself in check, regulating yourself, holding and supporting yourself, owning yourself. I don't resonate with killing the ego, but it's definitely like subduing it and being like, you know what? Hey, I don't need to react to my past right now. I can have my fear. I don't need to react to it, but I can feel vulnerable enough to let it surface and speak it firstly to myself, because that's where a lot of us get derailed in conflict. We get so riled up and reactive because it's like we get scared of our own space. Our own space kind of not necessarily betrays us, but kind of gets out of our control. And that is just due to dysregulation, overstimulation, something that we've most likely experienced in the past in chaotic environments. And so, in being in chaos, it causes like a certain distrust and discontainment and lack of control among our own space because we're so confused and we're so scared. And so, humility in the way that it is harmony as well and moving on, it puts you back into yourself and into your own space. It's a great boundary. It gets you back into your own truth, back connected with your own truth. It provides and opens up opportunity for connection to your own heart. And it keeps you contained so that you can use your own resources to help solve this problem. Because you trust yourself, it allows a trust of the other person as well to say their truth, be in their own truth, and then y'all are able to come together 50-50. Because also, you've come together in harmony within yourself. And this is how inner harmony, can invite external harmony and help other people and be compassionate rather than being avoidant because you're trying to be right. but being and staying vulnerable so that you can come together with yourself and with others in harmony. And when you are so contained, and when you're also just humble, it allows, mm, it just acts like such a salve for the power to just come in. Because when you're humble, you're not thinking of these things. You're not actively thinking, okay, you know, let me be this. Like, you're not being tactical because you're still connected to your heart. And so you don't need to have an over reliance on your mind. You're allow your real truth to come up and your heart to speak, rather than getting the mind involved and it just going to what it knows or what's familiar, and thus muddling the truth, the real truth of your authentic self that comes up through your heart. You know, it provides that much of an opening as well. And so when you're humble, your power, it'll just slide. It gives it an opportunity to slide up, and it'll just slide in wherever it needs to go. Because now, rather than doing what's familiar or reading from a script of rehearsed things, you're able to be in the moment and listen and be intuitive in selecting certain things, not even selecting, but allowing certain things to come up, harmonizing them through your heart so that it's not overly blunt, you know, but also keeping that truth so that you're not lying to spare feelings as well. You know, humility allows you to exist and that other person to exist. And that's why it's such a ally to power, because it allows your own power to exist outside of someone else's definition and idea of power and how it is supposed to exist. This is how you'll be able to come up with your own responses, whether or not someone is lying to you or being short with you or turning up on you. Either way, you're not coming from a false place. And that is how it's the harmonizer, and it brings in harmony. It creates a space of harmony for your power to simply exist without needing to wield it, without needing to prove it, and without needing to fuse it to your ego and just breathe that fire out on the other person. Woo. And in harmony, I want y'all in this moment or for homework to look into harmony. What color is it? What does it feel like? For me, it's purple, but it also ranges. It's like this pink to purple gradient, but mostly it's purple. But I want you to look into it and, define these things, like go deeper with it within your own mind. I'm just presenting the information and the things that I've learned and, going deeper within myself and like just looking at the energy, but it may look different from you. Harmony may look blue to you, you know? It really, it's no right or wrong. I want y'all to move away from that when it comes to this space, when it comes to learning here. You're ultimately learning what you define, you know? You're ultimately learning yourself. And so peer into it, see what color it is, see what it looks like. But on the last thing about harmony and humility, and see how it just flows into each other. Humility allows for harmony to happen as well, and for harmonic energies to come in and aid and assist you and this other person, and you and this conflict, and both of y'all individually with the problems that y'all have, because you're not taking up unnecessary space with your energy and trying to hop out and help the other person get it and understand, help the other person see your point, you know? It frees up necessary space for true collaboration and solutions that aid both of y'all to happen. That can't happen when y'all are only seeing yourselves and reacting to yourselves. And so, with humility and then the harmony that happens after, what happens next is self-love. Because humility creates this harmony within, and it allows for things to go through your heart and come out your throat, and the real truth to be spoken, you're able to be contained in your own love. That's your greatest resource. That's what's within. I know we treat self-love as an act, and we think of it as an act all the time, when really it's really an energetic state. It's nothing you need to do. We have it already, and we are worthy of it already. It's not something that we need to do so that we can convince the logical mind and the trauma brain to accept and to do and do upon us. It's just a natural energetic state. And when you love yourself, you'll behave a certain way. You'll keep yourself in check in a certain way. You'll have a certain type of integrity. You will just automatically understand, when you love yourself and when you're connected to that love, because we do love ourselves. We do. When you love yourself, when you can feel that love, when you're in it, it allows for you to just know certain things, know what to and not to say in this moment, because it'll hurt the other person, you're not cut off from your own love, shielded from it, because you're relying overly on logic to bring you through this. Or you're relying overly on fear. Compassion is very powerful, as we can see. It holds so much. It holds such a containment and such a focus on our own space so that we can show up naturally. It allows us a certain energetic state, that doesn't come with a script in mind. We have tools, that come from these places that function as these energies that we can use to put forth humility and put forth trust and put forth this and that. We have tools that we can use within our lives in conflict. But we don't just rely on those to work for us. We're in it, in the moment, fluid and flexible, letting our energy naturally move how it moves, cause us to respond in this and that way. And, we're in it. We're not trying to be the process. We're not trying to control it in that way. We are the one going through it. That's something I always say to myself as a self proclaimed and self knowing, self aware control freak. I'll find myself trying to control the process, trying to be the process out of fear, because out of fear of the unknown, and I would do that all the time with conflict, be very controlling and insert my own self so much into it, not even understanding that I was doing that to impose my own will, to control the other person, so that I had something good to predict, so that I could predict a good ending and then hopefully create a good ending and not be abandoned and alone in my fears, you know? But when we're connected to self-love and allowing that energy to run through us, when we're in harmony and our energies are in harmony as well, it's just like we're the one going through the process. We're not being a robot and just or a puppet and just, letting whatever happen against our own will. We're right along with it, co-creating. We're still conscious, very much so. We're the one creating, but effortlessly. We're trusting our bodies, we're trusting our energy, and we're realizing, oh, that is part of self too. It's not just my mind. I don't need to do everything from a script. Yay. And so self-love, it cultivates our space. The humility really fortifies our aura, and it helps us stay self-differentiated for the main reasons I mentioned before, to not impose our will, to not enmesh, but also to not try to pull that other person's energy in our space, to be able to stay sovereign and self-fortified and connected to our own resources, so that we're not trying to disrupt and distract that other person from their own feelings by pulling like their heart energy into our space and saying, hey, I need like over coddling. I need your love. I need you to over love me and over empathize. I need you to enmesh with me, essentially, because I'm not connected to my own love. Because I'm not connected to my own heart. Because I'm not connected to these resources that produce these energies that I need, that produce these thoughts that I need, or this knowing that I need, this vibration that I need, that I am already lovable. And thus, having conflict with the people that I love doesn't constitute me being unlovable like I thought it did in the past. Like I was convinced that it did in the past through the behaviors of the people that were in charge of me, And so when we stay there, when we stay self-differentiated, fortified, and resourced, instead of pulling energy into our space, pushing energy out, or inauthentically matching other people's energy, we cultivate even more trust in that blatant decision of self-containment, in that knowing, in that owning, in that being of that vibration. Who we are in that vibration comes out. Who we naturally and authentically are in that vibration comes out. And we're able to navigate it as us. It encourages and provides even more space for self-connection. thus creating this space or introducing you to this space, this resource of love within self, self-satisfaction, self-intimacy, and it allows us to be vulnerable. Because that's where a lot of us get tripped up when we're in conflict, when we need to have self-respect, when we need to use our power. We think because power has been used on us before in chaotic ways, to use our power is unloving, you know? And thus, we become codependent on the other person to be good in conflict and to never hurt us, to stay connected, stay enmeshed, you know, be able to predict our feelings. And so they can't say their whole truth in their own resourced way of how our behavior made them feel. Because then that means that they're attacking us, and then that means that they don't love us. But when we're able to stay self-contained and intimate within self in that way, and still connected to God, intimate with God as well, in, the greater spirit, any other name that you have for that, we don't need to knock that other person off their own game. We don't need that other person to be anything else other than truthful. But even so, we don't need that other person to be like universally, multidimensionally truthful in like knowing all the answers as well. You know? The focus is taken off the other person so much. And on them behaving, and it's put back on us. Isn't this crazy, y'all? Like, I hope y'all are getting y'all lives, because I definitely I'm getting my life as well. And so it just really keeps you tapped into truth, conscious, aware, still tapped in and connected to God as well, so that you don't feel abandoned in this moment. Because honestly, I think, when a lot of us, we think we need people so much, we think we need other people to behave, we think we need the world to be a certain way for us to be able to be ourselves and the certain way that we want to be, when really we just need to know that we love ourselves. From that place, we need to know who we are as ourselves. And then we also just need God and that connection, our spirit, and then the greater spirit, that we come from. We need to know our home and thus be in that home frequency. We don't need other people to behave as much as we think we do. We need to be at home all the time and make sure we can be at home. And I'm not saying that like we need to be perfect, but still be at home even when you're quote unquote wrong. Even when you dished out a response that you're not particularly proud of and that you need to take back. Like, and this homing practice, coming back to yourself, it is a practice. And it is a rich one, the deeper you go. But I'm just saying all that to say, like, we think we need other people so much in general, but also to behave a certain way so that we can be ourselves. But really, we just need us, and we just need God. Telling you a little story. Number one, complex trauma, it puts you in such a survival brain, which disconnects you from everything else, honestly. And when you're made to be in there, everything does come down to you. For you to figure out solely alone. And when we're made to be like that as children, and we're disconnected, like through that process of trauma, but also through the process of, what it means to be a good child, an obedient child, to always listen to your parents. We're disconnected from our spirit, from our own intuition. We get in trouble for making mistakes and thus just being ourselves. And we're made to put our parents on in that place so that they can be good. They need us to put them in that place within us so that we can be good and they can be good as parents. But what it does is disconnects us from our home, and it makes a foreign place our home. And that's not fair. And so that's why this is all important. And the self-love that all of this creates is really important. And then it shows you, because it allows you to have and keep an open heart to properly and effectively relay your truth with an open heart. But also this containment within love, it allows you the focus that you need to properly and effectively wield your power. Mm. Mm. When love is already the focus, when you're already in the vessel of love, power becomes different, honestly. It's so different. It's not currency anymore. It's something that you own. And when you own it, it's something that is not threatened. The other person doesn't become a villain. They don't become the monsters of your childhood. They're just a person in front of you. They're just a human. They don't represent all those times that you were made to give up your power, but then also you were abandoned and left alone to deal with your own mess, the mess of your own feelings and the fear that you were in having them. The confusion of the unknown, of not knowing what you were feeling, but just knowing that you were scared, knowing that you didn't know how to deal with any of this, and then knowing that you couldn't trust the people outside of you to connect with you in that way. But you needed to connect with them in the way that they wanted. All of that, when you're able to already be home in a vessel of love, it makes wielding your power different because you're not moving from fear. And so that love brings a focus, a proper and effective focus, so that your self-respect and the power within that is not biting, is not ravenous, is not out for blood, is not slithering, is not manipulative, is not self-righteous. It isn't defensive. It isn't reactive. It isn't in spite of, and it isn't a chip on your shoulder. It isn't for anybody. It is only for you. Your own self-respect. You don't need to go out and bite the other person to show that you have self-respect and that you are powerful. And this is why we do this work of peering energetically into things and then mapping in our own bodies how self-respect shows up. Having a focus on that so that another way that another person believes self-respect is and the way that they display it, it doesn't knock you off your game and you don't go to match it. If someone does something that you admire it and then integrate it into the being that is you. And you're able to properly source it because anything that you admire is already within you. I'm smiling as I say this because, like, this work is really to get you back to yourself. Absolutely. And not match other people that you may be scared of. And thus, you just get in their good graces or try to impress them so that hopefully they don't turn on you. Or so that the way that they wield power doesn't come out and get you one day. You're able to stay sovereign. Sovereign? Forgive me, y'all. I'm just a silly bean. But you're not able to be controlled in whichever type of ways by outside forces because you're just reacting to something. You know? What if, we go with the theory? Well, we already know that, like, I feel like I'm thinking of like atoms. We've learned that they don't touch, right? Like they never touch. And so if everything is an atom, we're never necessarily touching another thing. We're just feeling the sensation of our own atoms. Like, we're just like feeling the pressure of energy, you know? It's kind of freaky. I see what I have in my mind. If you don't see it, feel free to just let it go. But with that theory, what if something can never really reach out and touch you? What if what we're being affected by is just our own terror of being touched, of being taken advantage of? And that terror is used to control us, can be used to control us because we're reacting. Fear is a reaction. And so you're not able to be controlled by outside forces and them using your fear against you, but also using your lack of self-love against you, your lack of harmony against you, you know? Because when you really like end conflict with another person for yourself, like maybe it ended nasty and sticky together, but now you need closure and you get it from you, you'll notice that like certain things that they said that made you really mad, it actually just made you really scared because you were scared that they were true. But then when you get that closure for yourself and you kind of take your power back, you're like, oh, what was I so scared for? Because you already sourced it within yourself. And so when you have all these tools, all of this like knowing, when you have a home frequency that you go home to every day, that you stay in, that you do things that promote and cultivate that home frequency, like you're already home. You're already knowing of who you are. No one can really scare you. But also when you do this work, when you peer into yourself, going your own subconscious, and really meet yourself deeper and deeper, who or what can really scare you and control you? That's why we do this work. Because just like other humans seek to control you, to get something from you, from your reactivity, Look at it on like social media. When someone tweets out something and gets a lot of people to react, they get a certain type of currency of like, number one, attention, you know, number two, a certain type of power at you pushing your energy into their space, or just pushing out your energy readily available for someone to use it, or they get actual money, which is an energy of itself. And so in doing this work, we're able to wield our power, our reactions, our energy as we see fit. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being scared or fearful, but I'm saying staying connected, being contained, it won't allow you to react off of that fear and further push your energy out, for it to be for the taking type shit. So it really shows how humility as containment is at the core of self-respect. It's at the heart of it all. Because what is this all for? What are we learning for? What are we growing and strengthening up for? Is it to be mean? Is it to defeat our childhood monsters, our childhood bullies? Is it to be bad, a naughty child again? It's for the self that wants to be known again, that wants to be connected to again. It's for the self to be and exist for itself. It's not to be, it's not to exist as our ego and like, oh, I'm myself, like the self-filled ego that reacts off of a script that isn't really being the self. It's being its interpretation of the self, but it's really just to be that. It's I am. I just am. It's not I am Nicole. That can be a declaration, but it's just I am. It's just a being. It's just a knowing, And humility allows us to bring that focus into being so that you're not overly preoccupied with other people's feelings to the point where you lose your own truth and connection, but also other people's reactions. And I say feelings can go both ways of like other people's anger, but also other people's sadness, that you're using a boundary with them, that you're bringing up something that hurt you and they're sad or mad at the fact that you brought it up. You're able to stay focused on yourself, see it, observe it, don't bypass it, but then also recognizing that's something that is theirs and it's outside of my space. You're not pulling and drawing it in. You're not being unempathetic. Ooh, 555. But it's at the first reaction of it, just being observing it. And it's a focus on how you want to use your power as well. It's a focus on your own power, but also how you want to use it. I'll tell y'all this story of me crying in a park. It's so funny because I used to be so hard, y'all. I would never, ever dream of crying in public. And I haven't cried in front of a person yet, but like, child, probably give it a month or so. But I used to be ashamed of crying to myself. So imagine me allowing myself to cry in a park. And I had a little bit of like, I won't call it an anxiety attack. It was just a fit of anxiety. And from it, it birthed this lesson that I still keep with me of like, stop focusing on the scary thing more than you focus on yourself. And when we talk about humility, we see humility is such a big part of it. It's being able to stay contained. And so when you use focus, the way focus is within compassion, it allows you to focus on you, stay contained in that love, but also be open and willing to listen and be observant, you know, but staying contained through it all so that even when something actually scary comes up, not to say that, like, oh, with all these tools, life won't happen. That's what they're tools for, or if I stay in this vibration, nothing scary's ever going to happen. No. But it brings a focus where you prioritize yourself and your truth, not over the other person, but just in the face of it all. You're not focused on the scary things of what could happen or the scary reaction that may be happening in front of you. And thus, you're not trusting it over yourself. You're not trusting that fear over you. Fear, that reaction of the scary thing over you. You're not trusting the existence of the scary thing over yourself. You're trusting yourself first. You're trusting life will happen. You know that. But it's just like you also trust so much that you know how to deal with anything, that you're staying contained and not jumping out of your own space. And that revelation came to me because that's what I noticed I would do, trusting the scary things to happen. And so I mute myself. And so I dumb myself down because I trust that when I speak up, if I speak up, you know, because at first it's like when I speak up, but then it becomes an if, it becomes a possibility through that shrinking of like, oh, well, now if I speak up, I trust someone will put me down, will try to extinguish me and my fire. And so, in trusting that, I'm going to react off of that trust and just say nothing. And then that creates, number one, it creates a whole personality, a new personality where you're trusting other people in order to be you. You're gauging yourself as a reaction to other people's reactions to you. You're creating a whole nother you, a whole nother being that's agreeable, that's good, that's obedient, That's all these favorable things. And you're pushing the real you to the background. And so, as you go through life, you're not really contained because you're so focused and prioritizing of other people. You're so focused on them, and then you prioritize them over you. And so you're not really able to honor yourself because you don't have that self-focus. You're not able to be compassionate to yourself, and you're not able to utilize it with others because you're always just going to be predicting what they do and the possible scary things of what they'll do. Above all, self-respect is an honoring of you. Compassion helps to cultivate that. It's an honoring of what's there, the fact that you exist and the fact that your feelings exist and energy may exist and run differently, that your thinking exists that may run differently than others. And you're able to vulnerably present that to the other party and say, hey, I am different. This is what I solely feel, rather than trying to get them to feel it with you. You know, you're solely just trying to, not necessarily pleading your case in a pleading way, but presenting your case, presenting yourself and saying, how can we go about this? How can we fix this? To do that, you need to honor, you know, and the honoring becomes so natural when you love yourself. And it allows you to honor you rather than relying on others to honor you the way that you should honor yourself. You know, needing other people to be so attentive to you. You don't need people to be overly attentive to you and handle you with such fragility and care, you know, but you require people to handle you with respect because you treat yourself with respect. And then when people don't or try not to, you don't go back in the past and recognize that as a truth that you don't deserve respect. You recognize that as a truth of their own shortcomings. You know, this is how self-respect and all of these things like really are able to exist in your body and come up. You know, I kind of picture like liquid going through bunch of various tubes, you know, having their own liquids and own colors and coming up and rising up. It all helps you with your self-esteem, you know? This is why I think it's so important to really dive deep and say, you know what actually is this? Because a lot of us don't really know what these things are. We see it from a picture that we've been given, an image, a certain type of person, but we don't know what it is, and we are not really able to source it within ourselves. And so we just match other people. And then that creates a definition of something like self-esteem. But now in being here, you know, okay, self-esteem, it has a lot to do with all these other aspects. You know, compassion has a lot to do with all these other aspects. Self-respect, power has a lot to do with all these other aspects. And now in working on myself or on my power, on my self-esteem, my sense of worthiness, all of that, but on in working on my self-esteem, I know, like, I have an idea at the very least of what to do, where to go. I can go knock on self-love's door. I can go knock on the door of harmony, the door of connection, the door of home, you know? That's what we need when we gauge what is self-respect. A lot of us were given an image of it. And the same image that we have of it is the exact image, the exact thing that turned us off from power in the first place. That scared us, that made us deathly afraid of our caregivers and other people in our lives. And the reason why we break this down is so that we can make it bite-sized and into something and see it as something that we can actually digest and that looks realistic to us in our being and our own body. Because something that happens when someone wields power over you repeatedly, controls you, makes you not trust yourself, we may then have an aversion to power in general. And then we have an aversion to power within ourselves. When it comes up, we get scared of it because we don't want to be like that person. We don't want to be mean. We don't want to be forceful. We dress it up as other things when it's really we are scared of our own power. And thus, understanding it in a different way, breaking it down, we're able to be like, okay, I actually like this. We're able to resource it within ourselves, and our body is able to show us what power actually is for us. I have this story about this teacher, well, whose school I attended for about a year and some change. Her name is Miriam Hasna. And the lesson was Peaceful Warrior. And she said something that stuck with me where she was like, basically, she didn't, at some point, she didn't want to like have confidence. She said it in a different way, but she was just like, she was kind of confused as to what confidence was, and she didn't think she really wanted it. Because when she saw confidence, she thought of someone like Kanye West, who had this like big ego and who was really arrogant. And she was like, well, if it's that, I don't want it. I wish I knew verbatim of what she said, because there's probably some other message in there. But it stuck with me because, and it really helped to birth this episode, because we experience the same thing when it happens with power. When we think of power, we may see an older woman, an older man, an older person, a bigger person, a monster towering over us, and really pushing us down with their energy. And if we have that relationship with it, if we have that impression with it, then of course we're going to have this mismatching of power, this misunderstanding of it, and this dysregulation of it, because it's a lack of truth. And so when we're doing this and we're looking into the energy and we're understanding it in a different way and we're sourcing it within ourselves, we are looking for and finding truth. And then from that truth, we're able to integrate it into our individual selves, and allow it to be what it really truthfully is, but what it really truthfully is within us. And then we're able to express it in our own unique way. And this really just goes to show how much wisdom is in all of this, but also how individuality is in self-respect as well. It's called self-respect for a reason, but this shows the intricacies of it. Humility individuates you. Self-love. It gets you to self-love. It gets you home. It keeps you contained. It keeps you focused on self, focused on truth. And the truth is that we are individuals and we are able to wield our own power, have our own power rather, and then figure out based on our truth how to wield it in every single moment that we find ourselves in. Because also power doesn't have to look like two people fighting or you coming into conflict. You wielding your own power could be just trusting your own intuition. I love this because It's just, it's not only deep, but it's like pulled apart, you know? It's subtle. Whew. It's subtle. And I feel like we need to pick apart energy in this way and look at the subtle to see the truth in it, and the different messages within it, and the things that actually call out to us, so that we're not running through life so unaware, relying on half truths or lies. And so, going back to focus, there's so much within, because, like, going back within our childhood, aren't really taught like self-respect. We're taught how to respect other, like, respect only comes up when we're supposed to be respecting others and respecting authority, but we're seldom taught how to respect ourselves, because it's also not mirrored back to us, you know? And so when we're taught this, we put an over importance on the graces of other people and the emotions of other people, you know, on, oh, does this person feel respected or not? How is this person feeling? How is this person feeling in relation to me as a result of me? And we're looking to other people for a right to simply exist. But when you're in that sense of existence and you know you're worthy to exist, but also before you even know or question that you're worthy to exist, things just happen. You ever see a baby? It don't need permission to crawl. It just starts crawling. It doesn't need permission to evolve. It just starts evolving. It doesn't need permission to push something away that it doesn't like, you know? And so with this self-focus, we don't need permission because we just are. We don't need permission to wield our power because we just are. But when that sense of permission comes in, that's when things can kind of go haywire in our own execution. Because it's like, oh, we need permission. We don't trust ourselves. But also, why do I need permission? And we're reacting off of that subconscious belief. And we can mismanage our own power. But also, that goes with focus. We may see how a loved one chooses to wield their power. We may see and understand the definitions of self respect in our loved ones, and it may not resonate with us. We may not agree with it. And we may not agree with it in the way that they're doing it to us. And so when we're self focused, we're not just matching the people that we love and just agreeing with them because we think that that's love. And we're not just relinquishing our ability to be individuals and speak up or just have our individual thoughts if, like, the way that they use it, it's like it's not something that's particularly harmful. We just don't resonate with it. But also, we're not keeping quiet to keep peace and using that as love when someone imposes themselves on us and calls it self-respect. We're not giving away our own power and surrendering it just because, and like focus on the other person and like how much we love them and how much we wouldn't want to make them uncomfortable right now because we love them. And we're not, like, we're pulling back the hood on everything really and not masking, not speaking up as love. You know, we're able to see maybe this is my own fear, you know? We as humans, we're so silly. We're such liars, honestly. That's so funny. I'm just being silly, but getting back to it. And we're also not, letting our loved ones like impose their will and their power on us in a way that makes us uncomfortable without saying something. And so, in speaking up, focusing on self, it allows us to speak up, and it also produces an opportunity for you to teach them something and for them to learn a lesson, in love, and how to treat people that you love, that you say you love, and how when you treat or when you do this behavior, it means something else and it gives off something else. And that, maybe the way that this person uses self respect is not really self respect. And it allows them to go on their own journey and see that out from you simply just focusing on yourself and speaking up, and also not getting lost in any arguments, because like I said, humans are liars, not maliciously. But it's like we may be convinced that something is what it is. And when someone tries to come and tell us this, we're naturally going to detest it, or not detest, disagree. But even in that disagreement, because you're so focused on self and your own truth, you're able to stay connected to that and say, honestly, no, it feels like this. Now it's your turn to go explore, you know? But this is the thing, like wielding your power, being powerful in your own power, having self respect, it doesn't have to look the traditional way. It can just be, you know what? No, that doesn't resonate. How this is happening, it feels like this. Now here's your chance to go explore. When we are in our power and we utilize our power, it doesn't have to look like an argument. We're actually inviting other people opportunities, not only to be in their own power in a healthy way by being an example of that, but we're also giving them an opportunity to learn something different, to uncover things within themselves and heal. And in keeping that focus, if you're ever convinced or someone tries to convince you that you're doing something wrong by being any of these things, by being contained, by being self-focused in a healthy way and telling the truth, you're able to not be convinced and just be like, no, I don't see that. I see something else actually, and trust yourself in what you see. That's healthy self-possession, even with the people that you love. And so, with this focus and this prioritization of self, it allows a healthy discernment and a deep trust within yourself to be able to use that discernment as you see fit, because that is your power. But also, it all just makes these things personal and not for the gratification or reward of others. It doesn't give you good person points. It just allows you to be. It leads you back within and helps you solve your own problems, but also it helps you source things within yourself, create your own definitions, be your own individual, rather than needing someone else to give you permission to do that. And so, in closing out, and speaking of compassion, please check out my bonus episode of Intuitive Activism with everything that's going on with Palestinians and Gaza. It's really unfortunate, as well as what's happening within the Congo and other parts of the world. For some of us, it's time we may not know how to show up. And so delving into intuitive activism, you're able to really source your own truth and co-create, with the universe and with the earth and what it needs right now and what you can actually really provide. And going off of that, I do have a compassion bath recipe on my Patreon that you can check out that speaks more about, well, not more, also speaks about compassion and the different energies that reside in it, and also the herbs that you can use in your bath and additional things you can use in your bath in order to have compassion and bathe in compassion, because the world needs compassion right now. And I feel like it's really important at this time to resource it within ourselves and allow it to surface. That speaking of, I will have some products, yay, to sell soon regarding compassion for the aura, to help us heal and get better through plant medicine. So please stay tuned for that. Feel free to subscribe to my Patreons for additional updates about that. It's definitely coming soon. And yeah, thank y'all so much for listening. I really hope that this episode was able to help y'all in, big and subtle ways, and really just get y'all thinking for yourselves and understanding that the mind isn't just here, for you. You have other resources. You have the body as a resource, especially since the mind is part of the body. Help you to be and exist comfortably, freely, and in a healthy way. So yeah, thank y'all so much for listening. Please share this episode if it resonated with you, with a homegirl, a loved one, or even just on your social media. Love y'all, and y'all will hear me. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye. Mwah.